How did you get to New York City?
How did I get to New York City? It was destiny that I got here. That's how I got here. I grew up knowing about New York my entire life. My mother was born here in Manhattan. Because my family are a lot of musicians in my family.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have lived in New York at various times. And because I came from music-loving people, I came from club owners. My great-grandfather owned a really happening music club, nightclub, music club in Baltimore in the 60s. And so my great-grandparents, were constantly traveling to major cities in New York in particular to see music and things like that, like in the 50s and stuff like that. And so for me, New York as a kid was where one went if one wanted to be an artist. If you wanted to be an artist, artists lived in New York. If you wanted to be a movie star, you went to Los Angeles. But if you wanted to be an artist, you went to New York. And so I got to New York. That's how I got to New York. Just knowing that that's where I should be. I thought I was going to I wanted to go to school in New York, and it didn't work out. And I had a teacher actually encourage me to audition for schools, colleges that were not in New York, to not just audition for New York colleges. He said to me, New York is not going to just get up and walk away. So, there's some fabulous schools and programs all around the country. And you might find you enjoy getting to know an artistic community in other cities, Minneapolis, Chicago, places like that, Pittsburgh, where I went to school. And, and then after those 4 years, if you want to go to New York or wherever you want to go, it'll still be there. It's not going anywhere. So I said, all right, well, I'll go there. And then also my grandfather, for decades, over 50 years, lived in New York, even though my grandmother, when they didn't work out in the 70s, she moved back to Baltimore with my mother. But my grandfather always was here. And my grandmother's brother, who was also a musician and is a musician, he had always lived in New York in various places throughout his life. And so I would come here sometimes during high school to visit my grandfather. And just so for me, it was a no-brainer. That's where I was going to go. That was always going to be my home base wherever I went. It was always going to be my home base at that time. So I think fate got me to New York.
How and when did you know you wanted to be an artist?
It's interesting. I don't have a moment. I wish I had a moment. I've heard friends say, I remember I had one friend in college say the moment that they saw Phantom of the Opera when they were young, they knew that that's what they wanted to do. I had never even seen theater before I knew I wanted to do it. I didn't see my first professional play till my freshman year of high school. And by that time, I went to performing arts high school. So I was already deciding that I wanted to get serious and study acting. But I hadn't seen a play yet. I was doing musicals in middle school and stuff. So I don't have a moment. I think it just always made sense to me. When I was about 5 years old, I guess you're like in kindergarten or something like that. There was an assembly or something that they had, and during the assembly, I did a poem. I didn't write the poem, but it was some poem. I think it was I don't know what it was called, but it was something like it was called like the body poem, and other people did stuff together with teachers, and I was the only person in the assembly to do something solo. And I don't even know how that came to be. I don't remember any of that. All I remember is doing it. And I remember getting up there and I did this body poem, and the thing was like, you see my eyes, you see my nose, my mouth. And I was pointing to the things, you see my toes. And then the very end of the poem was like, and now you see all of me. That was the poem. My grandmother said at that moment, she said, he is going to do this. She told me this years later. She said, you were not afraid to be up there. She said it was incredible. And I think she knew what she was talking about because once again, there's a lot of artists in my family or artist supporters. And so, her brother was a major musician. And still is Grammy winner, things like that. And so she recognized in her grandchild, oh boy, you know what I mean?
Here we go again.
Yeah. And so I don't have a moment where I was like, this is what I want to do. It just was kind of always what I was doing, in some kind of way, and then finding ways to do it. So, unfortunately, I don't have a good story. Besides the fact of, I guess I just came out, knowing it in some way. Yeah.
From an early age, did you have a specific form of art that you seemed to be drawn to, or was it quite broad?
I think it was really just purely just acting, just like doing plays, wanting to be in television shows and movies, loving the things I was watching. And I would say for many, many years, throughout middle school and high school and even college, I thought that I was going to be a classical actor, in the sense that I was like, I want to be doing Shakespeare for months on end. I want to be doing these classic plays, both classic American plays and classic plays from Europe. I love Ibsen, love Chekhov, August Wilson, Adrian Kennedy. I said, I want to do all this classic stuff that I feel like I missed out on. I'm so upset that I wasn't a young actor in the 70s in New York. All the incredible plays and stuff that were happening in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, all those people, the Negro Ensemble Company. I was so upset that I, unfortunately, was like 20 years too short, that I was not going to be able to be a young actor trying to cut my teeth with like Angela Bassett and Samuel L. Jackson, knowing that these people were, young and doing stuff together, doing these things that I now deem classic, And so I said, well, I just want to do what they were doing. I want to go to England and, do stuff. And I want to, so I thought I was going to be a classical actor. And then also I didn't really dig new stuff that I was seeing. I said, I don't think this stuff is better than the old stuff.
Yeah.
And through some weird means, I have found myself primarily in the new workspace. And it does make sense, actually. It makes all the sense in the world. Because just because I am a classicist and love the archive and love history and love the past, I actually am always a forward-looking person, I came to realize. And so even the stuff that I do that is new, a lot of times it is touching upon the past, or it is talking about my relation of being a 21st century person in relationship to the past, or it's taking what I believe are kind of old principles or a kind of an older way of acting. I can't even say older way of acting, but there's the quality about my artistic ancestors, many of whom are still living, but there's a quality that I feel like I would like to capture and I would like to be a proponent of as well. I think we move on far too quickly in this country from things. We move on stylistically. We move on so much, hundreds of years ago, people wore the same clothes for 100 years. We change clothes every 2 years. Fashion, I say, well, let's hold on. Let's wear it out. You know what I mean? Music changes so fast. Everything changes so fast. I mean, maybe stuff did change in the past. I don't know. Maybe it did. And, and we're just not hip to it. Or maybe I'm just not hip to it. But yeah, so I thought I was going to enter into the classical space. A teacher had told me, me and a friend in high school, he said, you guys are going to have your own theater company one day. And I said, no. I knew then I had no desire to ever be a part of someone's permanently or run a company. I knew that I always wanted to be a freelancer and a free spirit. And I performed with a lot of companies. I've been an artistic associate of a lot of companies. Still am, but I think if I only did one type of work, or because a lot of companies tend to do very specific work, or maybe they have a particular style that is of their own, which I enjoy, and many styles I have studied and can be in that style. I think I would, I know I would be bored. I actually would not do well if I just had to do Shakespeare all the time, or just had to do a different, thing. And so, but I did know that then. I said, well, if this friend, if he starts a company, I'll act in the company from time to time. I said that in high school. So I kind of knew that. And that friend actually did start his own company, this little company he started. I think he might still have it. I'm not sure. But I've always known that I wanted to be free to move and shake.
Why has that been so important to you?
Sometimes I think I have too many interests for one. I think I have too many interests for one lifetime. I don't know. I feel like whoever my past lives were, I only did one thing, or I got to do none of it. And so for some reason, I'm trying to do all of it in one lifetime. And that's not even just in acting. It's in other artistic things, but in acting, I don't. So I feel like I dig it all. I've done stuff that people name as physical theater. I've done physical theater shows, and I love that stuff. But then when I met somebody that said, but isn't all theater physical? I said, well, you're right. So it doesn't have to just look like that one thing. If I'm sitting in a chair regular, that's physical theater. I'm physically, and how I choose to engage with my body. I don't have to sit in the chair in a kind of a asymmetrical way. That if I sit in the chair like that, then that's physical theater. That's making a statement or a commentary. That's a little more avant-garde. If I sit in the chair all asymmetrical and I got one arm off and I'm doing all that, but if I sit in it regular, whatever that is with quotations, well, that's still physical theater. So I began to, I think, not only specify my desires, but also it got so broad that it encompassed everything. And so, I just have too many interests, and I love it all too much. I just love it all. I love performing too much to only do one type of performance. Every time I see something, if I see something that's minimalist, I love that. I love doing minimalist stuff. I see something that they're changing costumes every 5 minutes. That's cool. That's exciting. Different movies and stuff that you see, I would love to do, a rom-com. I mean, I kind of just did a kind of a non-rom-com that hopefully will come out next year. But I would love to do straight up rom-coms and then also do a thriller and then also do a horror flick and then also be an action star. You know what I mean? I want to be in Bad Boys. I think I could really kill at that. But then I also, if you want me to do a movie where I'm playing, somebody dying of an illness, well, I would love to be a part of that story. To me, I want to be wherever good stories are being told. Wherever a good story, and I guess that's subjective, but wherever a good story is being told, I want to make sure that I have the physical capacity, the vocal capacity, the imagination to be able to portray it. To me, that is an ideal performer, and in that sense, I think is also why I would feel limited if I was just with one type of thing, because then I just feel like the vessel that I'm trying to consistently cultivate is one that can traverse so many different things. And I would like to. And so I would feel like, or if let's say if I was only doing one type of thing, And then I turned down opportunities to do a different type of thing. And I saw somebody else do a different type of thing. And I thought they sucked. Then I would go, dang, this is why I should have did that other thing.
Yeah.
You know, I always know that I love something when I'm upset that I'm not in it. That's when I know I love something, that I'm upset that I'm not in it. If I watch a play, if I watch a TV show, a movie, and if I'm just like, I am upset that I am not having fun and doing that. I'm upset that I'm not. And a lot of times I'm not, especially if I really love it, I have no jealousy or competition towards the people doing it. For the most part, I have no feelings of competitiveness with anybody, because we're all utterly individual. So to me, if somebody's really good, I can appreciate somebody's talent if I dig it. And I don't go, I could have did that better. A friend of mine is about to do a Broadway play. And I was going to try to put my name in the hat for it, And then I heard that it was cast and I got upset. And I said, dang, they're probably going to cast somebody that's going to suck. Or they're probably going to cast somebody that's a lot older because they've been doing it with this particular play. They've been doing it the last number of years. And I'm like, but the age that it is written, and when it was originally off Broadway in the 80s, the character is my age. And then I found out through the grapevine who it was. And it's a friend of mine and somebody who I love. I love this guy. I love him so much. I don't feel like I'm competitive with him. I go, somebody needs to get smart and put us in something together.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I feel like let's rise together. So the fact that I heard that it's him, I have no qualms about that show happening personally.
Yeah.
Not that anybody cares what I think, but I have no qualms about it because I know it will be taken care of. And recently he said the exact same thing about me with this particular role. He said, I also and would not have wanted to see it if he said, he was like, really you and one other guy. He's like, but really you. He's like, the other guy I'm thinking of would also kill it. He said, but really it would be you. He said, you're the only other person. And I just felt so honored and loved that he felt a similar way, You told the story about reading this poem when you were 5 and getting the reaction from your family that you did. Do you have a fairly vivid memory of the first time you actually did a public acting role? And if not, I'd love to hear about your just general ascendancy into the world of acting when you were whatever in middle school and high school, what you recall about that time for you and what it felt like. The first time I think I ever did something that was like saying lines and doing a scene and stuff like that for public was something in the 6th grade. Everybody has an interesting childhood, but I switched schools a lot when I was young for various reasons, unfortunately. And I went to a different school almost every year in grade school, different school. In 6th grade, I went to 2 different schools in 1 year. But the first part of that year in that school that I was in, there was this after school drama club. And I was like, man, okay, I'm going to get into that, And we did this thing that was set like in the 60s or 70s. That's all I remember. I remember it was set in the 60s and 70s, and it was about some young kids, and they were planning on going to a protest. These young black kids. That was what the scene was. I have no idea. I can't remember what it was. And I remember I got this this 70s, 80s jacket from my grandmother. She had it in the closet. Grandparents always got clothes from decades. My mother's like this now. I go, you're not wearing and can't fit any of this stuff. But this 1993 jacket would kill on Poshmark right now. You could probably make $150 from this jacket. I mean, she's got clothes from the 90s that,
For sure.
And I remember her wearing some of the stuff. So I got this like 70s leather jacket from my grandmother, because we had to costume ourselves. And I remember feeling so happy that I had something that was like kind of close to the period. I said, no other 6th grader is going to have something like this, And I remember doing that and I remember loving it. And then I remember being upset that I had to switch schools. And then I wasn't going to be a part of that drama club anymore. And then the school that I switched to, it was a magnet middle school. And I got to major in theater in addition to the academic classes. And that school, it had 3 different departments in this middle school. It had a health, finance, and law. So students were taking health, finance, or law classes. Middle school. They had the environmental science wing, which was like more sciencey. Then they had the arts wing, where you could do visual art, or you could do music, dance, or theater. And so as soon as I got there and I signed up for theater, and actually when I got, and also discovered that they had not an after-school drama club, they had an after-school theater at this middle school. It was called the Wishing Star Theater. And I love that place and those people dearly. And my theater teacher and the guy who ran the after-school theater has seen me professionally do stuff. And my mother tries to keep him updated on things, but he's very influential to me and to us. And I immediately started doing stuff there, and it just made sense. And my family would come. And when I started off with them, when I got there at the end of 6th grade, I had missed the show that they had just did. I didn't even get a chance to see it. They did this show called The Wind in the Willows, this musical, and I missed it. And everyone, and I was like, man, I would have been in that. Then the next year, 7th grade, I immediately, we had to audition and everything. And, you see your name posted on the little sheet, see who got cast in what part, And the first winter of 7th grade, it was Annie. And I was cast as the dog catcher, which I don't know at the time if I felt was bad or what, because it's a small role. And there was another cat who was a year ahead of me. He got a bigger role as this butler or something in the thing. And I remember being like, okay, well, he's definitely one of the head honchos in this program. And I said, it's cool. I just got here, so I'm not going to feel bad. You know what I mean? I said, they don't know me like that. But I loved the role, and we had a live dog. I mean, this was an incredible middle school theater, man. I mean, to me, I have always been one step ahead. I've been lucky to find myself one step ahead. The productions that I was doing in middle school could rival high school theater, like regular high school theater. And then, I went to a performing arts high school, and the productions we were doing there would rival college productions. And really could rival actually community theater productions, the stuff we were doing in high school, And then I got to college and was doing stuff that also was just top notch. And so I think I've always had an expectation for things to just always be as top quality as it can be, because that's just always where I found myself. And maybe I think I do believe that one attracts that as well. I think that I attracted that something just attracted me to seek places, whether I even knew it or not, but maybe there was something about it, something about maybe the way their application was, or something very small that might have told me in my spirit, this is going to be what I needed to be, And so, yeah, I definitely remember those early experiences. And it's funny, I actually have a program in the springtime of 7th grade. We did You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, and I was Charlie Brown. You see, so I very quickly stepped up. Then became, one of the head honchos. And I still have the program from it. And in my bio, very small bio, but I went, who am I? I said, Eric Berryman, is having, is very happy to be in this play, in this musical, and he would like to thank God. This is in the program. And I wasn't even very religious. I didn't grow up going to church. I grew up in a very open religious family. Very open. I didn't grow up praying around a dinner table. I didn't grow up doing none of that. I grew up also with various religions, unbeknownst to me. My grandmother was Catholic, but quiet about it. I didn't know she was Catholic until 2014. I didn't know she was Catholic until 2014. I said, you're Catholic? She says, yeah. I said, since when? She says, since I was 15. I said, why did I know that? I said, do you have a rosary? She says, yeah, it's around here somewhere. My grandfather's Muslim, his son, my uncle is Muslim as well. Also have, but I got told at a young age, or it was indirectly, I think, expressed to me, one does not need religion in order to be a good person. You don't need religion to tell you to be a good person, And so I think, and it's also a very individual thing, as my grandmother believed. If that's what you feel you need, then okay. And if you don't feel like you need it, then okay, that's fine. You know? And so, but for whatever reason, I think I was just always spiritual. But I thanked God in this middle school program. And then I want to thank my mother and my grandmother, my great grandmother. And then I also thanked all the other people, whoever they are. I thanked all the other people that picked me up for rehearsal, from rehearsal. I don't know who these other people would have been, because primarily it would have just been my mom. But I thanked them for picking me up for rehearsal in the evenings. You know, it was a very,
You took it seriously.
I really did. I really did, you know. And now, of course, I hate bios. I actually, I don't like making them. I worked with a company here in New York, very, very amazing company, famous and infamous company, Downtown Theater Company, that I've been working with them for a number of years now. And first time I ever worked with them years ago, I'm looking in the program. I said, man, this program is really, anorexic. This program is very skimpy, And they said, oh, yeah, we don't do bios or anything. They just list the performers and that's it. They have acknowledgments, donors, a couple of donors here and there, but they really don't do a lot in the program. And I said, oh, well, why don't you list, bios? And they said, well, it really doesn't matter. We came to find out. And immediately I was converted to their way of thinking. And I so understood it so deeply. When you look at a bio, what does it matter where I went to school? What shows you might have seen me in or didn't see me in? You're reading about all these shows you didn't see. You're reading about all these TV shows that you didn't watch me in. Why would it matter? I guess it would matter, So you say, oh, maybe I should think that this person is incredible or this person knows what they're doing. But my performance should tell you that. Yeah. My performance should tell you if I know what I'm doing, And also you might have saw something and you say, oh, that's the guy from this. I thought I knew that name. And then you saw the performance and thought I sucked in the thing you're now seeing. So why does that matter? Or maybe the thing you saw, it really doesn't mean anything. So I really hate bios now, but now I try to make them when I have to in my own way. I learned early on in COVID, I had to write an artist statement for a grant for something, which I also hate. And I wrote it in a way that felt true to me. And I liked one particular thing I said in it. And I felt that it was, because I said a bio should be something that's interesting enough where it makes somebody go, all right, I should consider this thing I'm about to watch, or I should consider this performer a little differently maybe. Or I should, hopefully my bio or the first line of it will make somebody curious enough that it's a little weird, but also makes them curious to lean forward, And the first line of my bio now, for the most part, in most things, is Eric is a part of work that he believes his grandmother and great grandmother would dig. That's the first line in my bio. I don't tell you what that kind of work is. I don't put all these weird, adjectives on top of it. I don't say I'm doing Afrofuturist, abolitionist, reclamation, where I don't say none of that. I don't say classical. I don't say nothing. I just go, he's a part of work that he thinks that they would dig. And then I hopefully got to ask questions about, well, who are these two women? And this thing that I'm watching him do, why would they dig this? Anyway, we get off track, but anyway.
Well, the act of acting itself, I wonder when you think about the early years when you got cast in Charlie Brown as the lead, or just that era of your life at the very beginning when you begin to take this work seriously, was there an alignment you felt when you began to do these public performances that just, I don't know, resonated with you, spoke to you in a way that other things in life just really didn't? Do you remember having a degree of clarity that confirmed this instinct that you had 100%. For this? Tell me about that.
100%. So, at that time, the thing that I could name was, I just have fun doing this.
You love it.
I love it. I just have fun doing it. I enjoy it, even though it can be nerve-wracking at times, but I have fun doing it. And I do think it also is fun when somebody digs what you do. Yep. And you know, as an artist, it's very hard to have objective means of feedback. The feedback is very subjective, right? If I'm a surgeon, I have a very objective mean that I did my job well. The person didn't die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, in most other careers, you have very objective markers to tell you how well you're doing.
Yeah. Feedback from reality.
Feedback, you know what I mean? And I guess to a certain extent, continuing to get cast is an objective feedback that tells you maybe that you kind of know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Maybe. But then when you know how casting works, you go, sometimes the reason you get cast or don't get cast has nothing to do with your talent. It doesn't mean you're not good, but it could mean, you know, various other things. Or maybe you don't know that the person that actually got offered the thing had a scheduling conflict, but you don't know that.
Yeah.
You know, but you're good enough that that you were also on their list to do this thing before. You know what I mean? So I guess early on when people, I think I also knew early on that your family doesn't really count. They'll like it for the most part. But I have a pretty good barometer for when somebody actually likes something or whether somebody is just being supportive, which is not a bad thing. But when somebody has trouble getting the words out, or when somebody, there's a way when somebody comes up to me after something where I understand, okay, they really actually
touched them.
They really dug it, you know, or they were surprised how good I was. That's also good. You know, so early on, I think people were like, man, this guy really knows what he's doing, you know? And then of course my castmates and my friends in middle school, they were very supportive and very obviously giving me the props. And so early on, I think it was mostly because I loved it. I just loved doing it. And then I had feedback along the way that told me that my love was not in vain, that I also was seemingly at that time, for what the level that it was, that I was good at what I loved to do. Because, wouldn't it be horrible if you loved cooking, but your food was bad?
Yeah.
That would be horrible. That would be, that would be really sad, man. But you say, I just love cooking. And it's like, but baby, this cake is just bad, baby. That's like, I know, but I love doing it. I mean, that's very sweet, so it would be really bad if I loved doing it and I sucked, So I think early on, I was getting feedback that told me that I didn't suck and I loved doing it. And then I think I probably didn't have words to it until after college, that in addition to having a love of performing, it is just how I see the world. How I make sense of the world is by being a performing artist. That's just how I make sense of the world. If a story that exists, right, a play or something that already exists, and I get an offer to do it, or in the past when I've gotten an offer to do it, how I make sense of the world or make sense of the character's place in the world in the 21st century or whatever it is to embody it and is to put my spin on the words or to get my thoughts out through that character's words, and through that situation. It's how I make sense of it. When I'm a part of things that are new, a part of things that I'm creating or co-creating, when I learn information about a subject, or this recent piece that I've been doing and hopefully we'll be touring more of, this piece delves in this old Black poetic art form called toasts. It's this rhyming couplet, long form epic poetry, epic street poetry, bawdy street poetry about these fantastical, folkloric and mythical Black street characters. Many people consider it to be the precursor to rap, because they were being told, and it's all oral. It's all oral. It's an oral tradition that has been going on since enslavement and before that, because African people, all peoples are oral, not just African peoples. And African peoples are also not just oral. That's also a misconception. There have been so many different writing scripts on the continent of Africa. You know what I mean? We have always written stuff down as well, but we understand the power of remembering something but this piece that I've co-created, is delving into this exploration of these old poems that I only have access to them because folklorists recorded them in the 60s because these things were not written down.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm really good friends with that folklorist who's in his 80s now and have done So, but my way of making sense of that material, making sense for myself, why do I think it's so good? Why am I so tickled by them? Why has no one ever heard them? Why didn't I grow up hearing them in mass? Why is this not talked about in English programs, in poetry programs, this early art form by probably illiterate Black men? Why? The way that I can make sense of all those questions, the way that I can make sense of getting out my giddiness, sometimes my issues with some of them, is by performing them, is by creating a show that centers them and having text and ruminations around them and making a piece that says, I want people to know that this thing existed and I don't think that it should be extinct. And so my kind of contribution to that is to perform it. Now, let's say if I was a scholar, a literary scholar, maybe my way to make sense of learning about this material is to write a book about it. Maybe that's how I would do it. Maybe if I was, something like that. Maybe if I was an engineer or a finance guy or something like that was, had a lot of dough. And if somehow I learned about these things, maybe I would go try to reach out to an artist and say, hey, I'm kind of rich. Is there anything that can be done with these poems so to make sure that they're not lost to society and not lost to culture and make sure that, something, maybe I have the funds. Maybe that's how I would do it if I learned it, if I learned about these things. So anyway, so I say all that to say that I think when I was young, I didn't have the words to it, but I felt it intuitively. But the older I got, I realized that acting was just the way that I make sense of the world for myself and how I can contribute to society, because I think everybody wants to be of use. Everybody wants to be of use in society in some way. Some people don't even know what way. And some people, they don't have a plan or a desire to do one of these kind of big careers. They don't, the lawyer, the doctor, the pharmacist, the firefighter, the whatever, some people don't have that desire, but that doesn't mean they don't want to be of use.
Yeah.
And so someone that's kind of starts working at a place and goes, oh, I actually didn't think this would be my line of work, but I actually like this and I'm useful. And people want to be of use. In my belief, I believe the human being wants to be of use and wants to be of service. And so everybody has to find their own way to be of service to the collective. And this is just the way that I have found being a performing artist and broader, being an artist specifically. This is the way that I think I can be of service.
I would love to get into some of the specifics of how you've done that, because I know you went to Pittsburgh, you went to Carnegie for college.
Yeah.
I don't know if you came here immediately after you graduated, but when you actually came to New York, how does one even begin to try to develop as a professional actor in this town? What do you remember? What worked? Anything related to that time I would love to hear about.
Yeah, so a number of years after I graduated from Carnegie Mellon, I got brought back for a variety of reasons. I got brought back to kind of teach and co-teach some master classes in voice and movement because I got really into very specific movement trainings that the school does do. But I got involved with this company that kind of coined and kind of are the big proponents of some of these movement techniques. I started doing shows with them and being affiliated with them, which was a really great honor and a beautiful experience. And I had also been engaging in a particular vocal pedagogy since high school, of voice and speech work, from a master teacher of the work who just happened, a master teacher of this vocal pedagogy for performers and for anybody, just happened to be teaching at a performing arts high school. And so I was one of her most interested students and continued that work throughout college privately with myself. And then got certified after college to be a certified practitioner in that vocal pedagogy. And so some of my instructors knew about these things and had a desire for their students to touch on some of that stuff, and also to see a former student, engaging with things like that. And so, and then a part of that, I also got brought back to also talk about what they called my unorthodox way of being successful. Because, I mean, for the most part, especially early on, I was one of the most, what is success? But I was one of the most successful people in my class as far as constantly working, engaging in the work. I may not be famous to the masses, but that doesn't mean I haven't been working and haven't been getting paid to act. And haven't been a part of some projects. And I mean, for years, throughout most of my 20s, I was constantly the youngest person in the room. I was constantly in the room with legends and people that were, older than me. But they felt that I was mature enough and had the talent enough to be in that space with them and to be doing those shows. And so they were like, can you come back and also talk to the students about the unorthodox way that you have been a working actor? And I said, well, I guess it is unorthodox in this current time that we live in. I said, but really, I'm just following an old model, to go back to that thing about trying to be like my artistic ancestors. I said, I'm really just following an old model. And that old model was, the new model is when people graduate from colleges, they want to go right to New York and right to LA and hit the pavement and start auditioning and trying to be in a Broadway show and trying to be in an off-Broadway show and trying to be in a television show and trying to be in a movie and trying to be famous. And honestly, I think that a lot of colleges don't do a good job of dispelling that, because I think that makes for a lot of disappointment. And I think that Carnegie at that time, I think they had realized that maybe they were doing some people a disservice by also being proponents of that and putting so much pressure on New York and LA and only bringing back Tony winners to come and talk to students, or only bringing back alumni when they were famous. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I heard a story, I don't think I'm going in trouble. I heard it's a small story. I heard a story from a movement teacher of mine who had got some money to bring me there to like co-teach with another person from the outside who I knew to go do some movement stuff. And she was, it was a big thing for her to get money for me to do that, because I didn't have no Tony Award. I didn't have whatever. And this is a creme de la creme institution. They're not going to just bring back any alumni. And at that time, she said, years ago, I tried to get Leslie Odom Jr. To come, and Leslie wanted to come and speak to the students and give a couple master classes, and they wouldn't give me any money for it. Now he's Leslie Odom Jr. And they can't afford him. Right. I mean, he would still do it. He loves Carnegie Mellon. He is such a wonderful spirit. You know what I mean? But they shouldn't do that. You shouldn't the students just shouldn't hear about when everybody's at the penultimate top of their game, the objective top of the game. Yeah. So I was very happy that they realized that another way to be on top of your game is to be a consistently working actor. And to me, that is what an actor is. And sometimes the things you do, millions of people see it. And sometimes the things you do, maybe only 10,000 people see it over the course of a small run or something like that. You know what I mean? Or sometimes maybe only, 500 people see it, And so I came back to just say, so essentially my first few years even though I was based in New York, I was almost never in New York because I was constantly hitting up the regional theater circuit, which is what it's called. And I kind of learned this way of being from my teachers in high school. I had been learning about all these amazing theaters that existed in Atlanta, in Louisville, in Minnesota, in Chicago, Kansas City. My own hometown, Baltimore, is home to 2 incredible theaters, one of which I was a company member of for a number of years. DC, just an hour down the road from Baltimore, has incredible theaters. So, but I knew that I didn't want to be an actor that stayed and lived in those cities, because I knew from growing up that a lot of the actors that I would see in these shows didn't live in Baltimore. They were coming from New York. I knew every time I looked in somebody's bio, I could see this. I knew this about them. I knew that so I said, oh, well, that seems to be what you do, especially if you want to work all the time. And I didn't want to sit around and wait in the phone and do that thing you see in movies where the actor's just waiting around by the phone or waiting, I guess now, for your agent to email you an audition or email you something. I said, there's work to be had everywhere. And so early on, I was taking work and auditioning for things everywhere. And I was doing shows in Baltimore, and I was doing shows in Louisville and Minneapolis. I left school early. Actually, I got pulled out of school early. My senior year, I still graduated. I still graduated. I just didn't go to graduation because I had a 2-show day. I was in St. Paul, Minnesota, doing this new play. And then also early on, I think I just always want to work. So for me, I'm like, well, once again, as I said earlier, wherever good stories and good work is, that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
And my freshman year of college, found out they were doing all 10 of August Wilson's plays in repertory. Only time this has ever been done. Or at that time, it was the only time it's ever been done. But they billed them as staged readings. But they would be fully costumed, and they would have a minimal set. And it was for a month, and you could see all 10 of August's plays. And they cast all these legends, Black acting legends of film, television, theater. Half of them had originated half of these roles, right? I found out they were casting a couple of little roles. I found out on the winter break after my first semester freshman year, and at the Kennedy Center. R.I.P. No, I'm kidding. At the Kennedy Center. And my mother drove me we drove down, and I waited around. I wasn't an equity actor, so I couldn't automatically get an appointment. I had to wait for a few hours. Did the audition for this play, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, as her nephew, which at the time I was like, man, I'm not going to get cast as this, because August Wilson describes him as looking like a fullback. And I said, I'm not as thin as I was, but I was really, really skinny and scrawny. And I said, there's no way they're going to cast me in this. And Kenny Leon, Broadway director now of many things, and cast me. I got the call 2 days later that I got cast in this thing. And I'm surrounded by all these incredible people, and did that on my own. Took the contract back to the head of my program at college. And mostly when you take outside work at Carnegie and it's not your senior year, they tell you you're going to have to take a year off to go do that if you want to do that. And then you have to restart that year. I took the contract to her, and she says, well, I guess we'll see you next year. And I said, no, you won't. I said, look at the dates. Because it was only a month run in the spring. And because they billed them as staged readings, they had only allotted very minimal rehearsal. Like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks of rehearsal.
Wow.
And it just so happened that all of my performance dates, the way our show happened on the repertory, on the rep, all of my shows were on the weekend. I only missed 1 day of school, and I was bussing it back and forth from Pittsburgh to DC to rehearsal. And actually a large portion of the rehearsal happened during spring break, my spring break. The lady, the head of the department, she said, somebody is looking down on you. When she looked at my dates, she was like, this is unbelievable. And so that early, even then, all the instructors and teachers said, Eric is somebody who walks to the beat of his own drum. Always. and I'm never waiting for somebody to tell me I can and cannot do something. If it's out there for me to go seek, well, why shouldn't I go seek it? And try to be a part of it and try to put my name in the hat. And so I kept that. I've always had that. And the guy that directed that show that I did, he was the one that directed the thing that happened in St. Paul that pulled me out of school early. He called me. And also when I was down doing that show in DC my freshman year, I remember walking with one of the actors. And this had a crazy cast. It was Harry Lennox and this guy named Roger Robinson, was an incredible theater actor. Finally won a Tony later in life before he died. And it had Anthony Mackie in it as well. And I remember walking with Anthony and asking him questions and things like that about the business and stuff. It was like me being in grad school at the same time that I was in undergrad. I was doing this work. Yeah. And I remember asking the older actors, actor Roger Robinson, I said, how was your audition for this? I'm like 19 years old. He looked down at me and he said, young man, I didn't audition for this. I said, you didn't? I said, what do you mean? He says, as old as I am, if they don't know what I can do by now, F them. And at that age, I said, wait a minute, you can get work by not auditioning? And from that moment on, I guess I might have put it on my invisible vision board where I said, I want to figure out how to be involved in projects and not have to audition, because auditioning is one of the most horrible things ever. Yeah. It's horrible. Yeah. I hate it. Everybody hates it. I'm not bad at it, but everybody hates it. And I would say, especially through my 20s, over 80% of the work that I did, and like I said, I worked all the time doing plays. I didn't audition for over 80% of it. It happened off of relationships. It happened off of somebody seeing me in one thing, me working with somebody in one. Like one audition could lead to me now doing 3 other things without auditions. And so after I graduated, I was telling about this unorthodox journey of doing plays in the regions. And then I discovered that not only are actors from New York hired to do these shows in these different regions, also directors that live in New York and work in New York, they do these. As a young actor, I realized, wait a minute, they also direct in Chicago and in these other cities, And then I started to realize, wait a minute, sometimes plays start out in other cities before they come to New York. And then I kind of strategically realized, I think I'm definitely going to keep doing this for as long as I can. And I kind of backdoor ninja'd my way into New York. And suddenly, when I start becoming a person that New York people are hearing about, people know, they go, who is that guy? Because I wasn't hitting the pavement in New York the way maybe other people were. I mean, I still did. I still went to auditions in New York, here and there. But then I tell young actors, say yes to everything. Every reading, I would do people's backyard, living room readings. That's also what you understand, is that you might be a young actor who's trying to make it, but be friends with a young playwright who's trying to make it. Be friends with a young director be friends with a young arts administrator. I got friends that, they were an arts administrator for a little Brooklyn theater company. And now they're an arts administrator on the highest level for one of the major off-Broadway theaters where shows, try out their stuff before they go to Broadway, And so this is how you really build community and how you all grow, I think and I felt that way in college. I feel like actors are always trying to be best friends with the actors. And that's not to say I'm not friends with other actors, but I said an actor's not going to hire me. I want to be friends with the directors. You know what I mean? So I definitely always tried to say yes to as many things in New York as possible. I mean, I was a nightmare for my early agent, my first agent out of college. I was a nightmare for her because so much stuff that I was doing, she was not helping me get. Yeah. And it was also like, wait a minute, you're going where for how many months? Because I was having these relationships and these things. Or I might have took place in an intensive. I took place part of this intensive with this theater company, in 2013. And at the end, and actually that company, they were going to be doing a show the next year about the legend of John Henry, the American, folk hero. And I knew that. And I knew that that company, they used their summer intensives to workshop ideas on these 60 artists from around the world of how they were going to make and devise their pieces. I knew that they did this. So I said, okay, well, hopefully I'm going to apply and get accepted to this intensive for 4 weeks in upstate New York, which I got accepted into. And the only thought I had in my mind, I said, because I know this company, they don't really audition. They don't really audition, this company. But I said that I know they also don't got no black people in this company. And I said, they're going to have to audition somebody. If they're doing a play about John Henry, at least one person's got to be black in this show, you know? So I said, I'm going to go to this intensive, and hopefully after 4 weeks, I will be somebody that they know after 4 weeks, and maybe they'll give me an audition to be a part of this play. At the end of the 4 weeks, the director of that company, world-renowned director, sits me down and says, so we all love you. We've fallen in love with you over these 4 weeks. We love your work. We love, how you are in the training and everything. So, we're doing this thing, Steel Hammer, this play about John Henry. I said, yeah. And she said, these are the dates. Do you want to do it? Just like that. I mean, not just like that. It was a lot of work, you know what I mean? But once again, that kind of vision board thing that I put in there, and that I didn't have any ego going into it. I didn't go into it being like, I'm going to do this intensive and they going to ask me to be. I went in there saying, maybe they'll know about me and, at least give me an audition so I can really, because I don't know what the material is, and, that's how it turned out. And so, yeah.
It's fascinating hearing your story. That it strikes me, and I've met some other people for the show who embody this, but you may be at the top of people that had, and you correct me if you disagree, but had a clarity from a very early age as to what they really wanted to do with their life. And that you have given yourself over to this art. It's almost like a submission or a total commitment. And I'm wondering if that is how you think about your love of acting, and if there's ever been any waffling in your identity. I know you're interested in other art forms as well, but in general, that seems to me to be a massive competitive advantage, or just an advantage for focus, that a lot of people who are meandering through life trying to figure out how to spend their time and energy don't always have. And I'm wondering if that resonates with you, if that's how you see yourself.
Yeah, it does resonate with me. I think also because I approach it as my career and my profession, which are two, I think, very important words to use. It gives me automatically, those two words give me a grounding sense. Because to be an artist is to be in a very insecure atmosphere, and to be in and not just insecure as far as, the self, but just the world, and just shows could close, things could happen, things will end. You know what I mean? I know people are like, wow, why is Kit Harington making, $500,000 an episode to do Game of Thrones? It's because there's a chance that after that, he will never work again, or he won't work for 3 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the money kind of has to kind of get you by, because this is a very insecure profession, or somebody comes along for an audition and somebody goes, oh, Kit's going to kill this. He'll be perfect for this. And then somebody kills the audition, and now Kit missed it. At this point, I doubt, how much Kit Harington is, Jon Snow, if anybody doesn't know from Game of Thrones. I don't know if Kit is really auditioning for things anymore. But so using those words, career and profession, grounds me, and gives me a kind of an internal stability that is helpful, and is also helpful when I get frustrated. Yeah. When I get frustrated, that doesn't mean that I'm suddenly not going to be an actor. I took a hiatus from acting, but nobody knew about it because COVID happened. So everybody was on hiatus. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I actually was about to take a personal hiatus, especially from theater. I had actually become very disheartened, and the theater was breaking my heart. It was breaking my heart. And so I said, I'm going to take a break from theater, and I'm saying no to every theater audition, every theater offer. And I'm focusing even more than I had been on film and television. But like I said, nobody knew that I had took that hiatus, because everybody else had to take a hiatus. So I was fine. I was fine during COVID. So I don't care. I said I needed a break anyway. And the reason I needed the break, and the reason why I was disheartened, is because I had got to a place where I was tired of being the friend that was doing all the cool shit, all the stuff that people envied, and had no money to show for it. I was tired. I was tired of doing the stuff that was changing people. I was seeing it every night. I'm seeing some of the stuff I was doing that was making people go, I didn't know this was possible. I've been reinvigorated by seeing this thing that you were in, this thing that you led. You know, it was crazy. You know what I mean? I did this show that you know, the New York Times said the show should have won a Tony, but it was off Broadway, so it never would have won a Tony. You know, sometimes they do these lists of things of like what will win the Tony, what should win the Tony, and occasionally in the should category is a way of them giving shine to shows that aren't even Broadway shows. So I did this show for a number of years, and this show, in addition to getting incredible reviews and people really dug it, and that show was stressful. It was very tough mentally and vocally on me. But the Times said it should have won a Tony. I thought that was so beautiful, and I loved that. And I can't take vacations. Yeah. I travel a lot, but that's because I work. I'm all over, you know, all over this country, all over the world. But it's because I'm working. And in the year 2019, I had done all this incredible work. I had did a show at St. Anne's Warehouse, which was my dream. It's one of the places to this day still that I think it has some of the best theater from around the world. I grew up, when I got to the city, I was trying to, whenever I was here and not, you know, traveling somewhere else, I was always trying to see shows at St. Anne's. And so I did a show at St. Anne's. This show that I'm talking about that people said I should have won a Tony for, that was at St. Anne's. And then I did a new play at Rattlestick Theater. And then I actually had to leave that show early, and they hired an understudy for just me. And I didn't even have a major role. I was very honored that they did that and that they wanted me that much. And they knew up at the top that I had this other date after that for this other show. There's a much longer term play. And I did that, and they let me leave, and they had somebody come in and do my role for a week so they could finish out the show. And then I did this play for months about the first Black woman to play professional baseball in the Negro Leagues. I did that at Roundabout. This is all in 2019. This play at Roundabout is a world premiere. Incredible play. And then by that winter, I did this brand new musical that I don't really do a lot of. This musical about Moby Dick, the musical at ART, the famous ART where so many Broadway shows starred at, you know. Did that with these incredible creatives. And then actually had the double duty. My last week of Moby Dick performances, I'm in rehearsal for another play that just happened. Once again, somebody looking down on me. This play that I had been helping to develop with this writer and this director about a young Malcolm X before all the religion. This play, that happened to be in Boston, and Moby Dick's happening in Cambridge. Somebody's looking down on me. That I could keep, that I didn't have to leave that Malcolm X play that I had been helping to develop over the last few years, and that the writer essentially wrote with me in mind. He called me before that and said, hey, man, and we worked together on the John Henry thing. We worked together, you know, and he said, I've been writing this thing. I got this commission. He said, and I just hear your voice. He said, are you free for this workshop? And next thing you know, we're doing these workshops. And a couple years later, we now world premiere this thing. And it world premiered February of 2020. Oh, shit. So we lost. So we finished the run, but we lost the momentum of that show being able to happen other places, you know, and the theaters got backed up, you know, and stuff like that. And so I'm doing all this incredible work. I won Best Actor for doing that Malcolm X play. And the writer won Best Play in Boston. Nobody knew about it because they sent me the PDF of my award during COVID. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I'd had no money. I couldn't take time off. I couldn't just freely go. You know what I mean? I just, and so I just was very, very disheartened by the theater. And I was, like I said, tired of being the friend that was doing all this amazing work and had nothing to show for it. I said, I would like to be the friend that's on a meaningless sitcom and has some money. I would love to do that. I could do that for a couple of seasons. You know, I would love to be doing a bunch of commercials for Best Buy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm an actor, so I want to do everything, you know? And so, but ultimately, even though I was very disheartened, it never meant that I did not want to ever do theater again. It did not mean that that was a part of my artistry that I didn't want to do. You know, it not only made me go, all right, let me just recalibrate. And also just take a little second away from that specific medium and focus on other mediums. But you know, I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker. And I think ultimately I'll probably end up a poor artist. It's very likely I'll die a poor. It's very likely that I'll either be very, very rich and famous, and I have no desire for fame. But there's a very big possibility that I'll either be that because it's what everybody has seen in me since I was young, or it's very possible that I will die a poor artist and probably be very happy, but unfortunate because I also just once again walk to the beat of my own drum. And even though the theater and sometimes the stuff that I do, you know, well, it doesn't make it to Broadway where I can make a little more money doing it. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be on Broadway. To me, Broadway should be and is supposed to be the creme de la creme of the American theater. And there have been some things that I've done that I can say without ego is the creme de la creme of American theater. And for whatever reason, it doesn't fit the mold of what Broadway is, you know. And unfortunately, because I don't star in a movie, unfortunately, it wouldn't draw butts to the seats. But I would say, well, you just have to change how you market the thing, you know, because the star of the show should be the subject material, or should be the writer, or should be the you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think the John Henry play, you know, was going to be on Broadway, but the star of that was John Henry, a play about the American folk hero John Henry on Broadway. Y'all went to school or studied marketing or whatever. Figure out how to sell it. And do it with somebody who is not on a TV show consistently, or is not in a movie, so it does not have that name recognition. But when you see it, you go, that's the only person that could have done that, that could have made me feel that could have made me do all that. You know, I heard a story, Zach Quinto, who went to Carnegie Mellon.
That's right.
Zachary Quinto, I think I read somewhere that essentially, I'm paraphrasing, that, you know, he did this play on Broadway. He did The Glass Menagerie, I believe it was, with the great Cherry Jones, also went to Carnegie Mellon, who I met when I was in high school. If I ever see her as a professional actor, she's not going to remember, but I'm like, look, I saw you when I met you when I was in high school, and I saw you do this play. They don't tour plays like they used to, but they toured the play Doubt that she was the original in, you know, and they toured it. I saw it after it was on Broadway in Baltimore. And she came and spoke to my senior class in high school. And I think I even said, I'm going to Carnegie Mellon. She went, oh, okay, you know, let's go, that's good. And so anyway, so it was her doing this play, the great Cherry Jones doing this play, Glass Menagerie, playing the lead role, and Zach Quinto was in it. And people came to see that show, and Zach knew this because he was now Zachary Quinto Spock.
Yes.
And he knows in his heart that they should be coming to see one of our greatest living actors, which is Cherry Jones. That's why you should be coming to see yet another production of The Glass Menagerie. That's why you should be coming. Yeah. But you don't know who she is. And that's a shame. But it's okay, because he says, well, now I will now use what I have so that now you come to see one of the legends, and you come to see a play that I think is still important. And he realized that it kind of, you know, happened. That's just how his career went. He was in that show Heroes.
That's right.
You know, that was big for him. Yeah. And then that led him into getting Spock, which is another level of fame, right? And now he can use, and that's really my hope. My hope as I continue to be in film and television is that because that gets more eyes on you, is that now that will get more butts in the seats. I think that's actually one of the reasons why Denzel likes doing theater even more, is because now he knows that he will always have an audience to see a play that he thinks is important. You know, for people that say, why would I go see Fences? Or why would I go see this August Wilson thing? You know, or I guess go see Othello again, you know, but now he can use who he is to bring butts in the seats and also do the thing that excites him the most, which is performing live. Samuel Jackson talks about this. There's nothing like performing live. And I knew when I saw him in The Mountaintop, he plays Martin Luther King on Broadway years ago. I had never seen him do theater, and he hadn't done theater in a long time. But the minute he walked out on stage, I went, this guy's a theater actor. Because you can tell it. I can see it. I can see when somebody walks out, if they're film, television actors, but did they start in theater? I can tell.
What do you see? What do you notice?
It's just it's a comfort that they have being on the stage. I saw Chris Rock do a play, and it was obvious he had never done a play. It was obvious. He didn't know what to do when he wasn't speaking. The camera wasn't on him. He didn't know what to do. You know? He was cool when he spoke his lines. You know, and when I was young, I tried to do that a lot. When I was like in college, in my first few years out, I would try to see plays that quote unquote movie stars were in. And I could tell always who did theater. Frances McDormand, saw her do a play. And I now know Fran, you know. And I said, oh, she starts in theater. Then I went and Googled and I went, oh, right, because they went to this conservatory for acting. They started doing theater. They started doing things in the regions. And for many of them, it took a second. You know, we think people that are famous have been famous their whole lives. They haven't been. Maybe in the last 10 years is how long Benedict Cumberbatch has been in our consciousness. That's not a very long time in relation to his career. How much stuff has he done that you have not seen? James Earl Jones said some of the stuff that is the most prized to him, most people have never seen because it was theater. You know, some people have never seen it, and they won't never see it because they weren't in live in 1976, or they didn't see the play he did in whatever. But it's some of the most prized things to him. And so there was a quality, you know, that I can see a lot of times when somebody walks out on stage, or someone that doesn't do a lot of theater, like this chick I just did this movie with. Well, first of all, I could tell that, you know, she's young, but I could tell that she did plays when she was even younger, and I could tell. And I said, we got to get you doing more theater. And she says, I want to. And she just moved to New York from LA, but she's primarily a film actress. And TV, but the way she works and how she acts, I said, oh, we got to get you on. And she says, I know, I did this like 24-hour thing. It's like 24-hour musical thing. And I really love that. I was like, I know people. And I said, if something comes along, I'm calling you. She was like, please call me. I said, because also the theater needs good people. They need good, talented people. You know, they need good, dedicated, grounded, talented people, you know, to me, I believe. And I believe this way about, you know, all the playwrights are now consumed by TV. TV got good because they stole all the playwrights. And now I want those playwrights to come. When the writer's strike happened, I went, forget TV. I said, write a play. I said, write a play, y'all. I did a play with the TV, mainly, she's not mainly a TV writer. She writes TV. And we did a play of hers, a world premiere in California last year. Fabulous play that I hope comes to New York. I hope comes to New York, and that I hope I get to do it. Fabulous play. I was playing Jesus' brother. Bad plays, bad boys, bad. You know, and she made almost nothing up in this play. Everything that's in the play, you can find it in religious texts, down to my character's existence. Oh yeah, it lists 4 brothers and 2 sisters in Matthew and Mark. They listed. So you know, she's a TV writer as well. You know, that's how she thinks she makes her bread, most of her bread, but she's a playwright, and she's a fabulous. So I'm always trying to get people to come back to the theater. And so you know, to finish this point, there's a very good chance I will end up a poor artist because I do love the theater and I love what you can do. And a lot of times, and more now, when I think of stories, I do see more stories as film and television, but it's just not a medium that I know how to create in. And I'm going to start a little bit, but also I just got to try to get people on board to help me, you know, Like, I really don't want to write the stuff because I respect writers. So I really just want to write a little bit, but really I just want an actual writer to work with me on it because I respect what they do, but it is my idea. But for the most part, a lot of stuff when I think of or stuff I get excited about, it's just being live in front of people. And so, but I just know that is not a profession. And maybe the tides will change one day. I don't know. That you can make a lot of money doing it, or that I make my money doing something else, which a lot of times even agents will tell you, agents will tell you, we'll make you your money, try to get you on a TV show and make you your money doing this. So then you can do whatever play you want.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you could spend 6 months doing a TV show, filming in Alaska, Indiana, wherever it is, and then for the rest of the 6 months of the year, do whatever play you want. You know what I mean? And now you feel like you are artistically fulfilled and financially fulfilled. But my hope is that by doing the film and television, it would just bring more butts in the seats. And I got confirmation this summer that plan is not stupid. And it's possible. And it's also possible to do all this without having social media. As people continue to fight me on it. My friends. I left it all. I left social media in 2019 and convinced Gabby to leave it.
That's right.
I convinced her to leave it, and she's still off of it. But I was doing this play with Classical Theater of Harlem this past summer. It's a fabulous new play, what I'm calling a neoclassical play, because it's a new play, but it's about an ancient subject and an ancient figure who the ancient Greek playwrights wrote plays on, but those plays have all been lost, or we only have fragments of them. It was a play about an ancient Ethiopian king. And to the Greeks, in Ethiopia, which I've since learned is actually a Greek word. It's a Greek word. And Ethiopia to the Greeks was a much larger landmass of Africa. Not just our small Ethiopian country to this day, but it included a much larger landmass that included several countries. And the term Ethiopia, you can look this, it wasn't pejorative. It was just descriptive. But Ethiopia means burnt-faced people. That's what the term means.
Wow.
Right? So that means they're not describing olive-skinned people. They're describing Africans. In the dark skin sense of it. Right. But the reason why it wasn't pejorative is because one, it was just descriptive. And two is because they almost worshipped the Ethiopians, ancient Greek civilization, because ancient Greek civilization was aware where they got their civilization from. And this has been proven. And this tries to be talked about almost every decade, where a new scholar will write something to try to say what an old scholar has already done. But society does not want you to know this. And actually, it was a concerted effort. Now I'm getting on a whole thing. It was a concerted effort, I believe, in the 1700s by these European men, these European scholars and philosophers, to eradicate the Afro-Asiatic roots of ancient Greek civilization. And the reason why they wanted to do that, of course, is because if ancient Greece is the mother and father of all of Western civilization, this is what we are all taught, Aristotle, everybody, everything, like so much stuff, right? This is what we believe in Western civilization is the creme de la creme and the godfather of us all. Well, what happens when you find out that ancient Greece had a godfather and it was Afro-Asiatic peoples and that they acknowledged it? The ancient Greeks did not hide that. They put it in their works. Herodotus talks about it. It is in their plays. It is in the Iliad. In the Iliad, a goddess is looking for Zeus in the very beginning to ask a question. Achilles' mother, Thetis, is asking Zeus, goes to Olympus to go ask Zeus for something about Achilles. And they go, Zeus ain't here. At Olympus, here at Olympus. And she goes, well, where is Zeus at? What do you mean Zeus is not here? Where is he? Oh, he's off dining with the Ethiopians. The lordly Ethiopians. This is in Homer's Iliad. Right? But there was a concerted effort by these European men in the 1700s, I believe it's the 1700s, to eradicate it. to eradicate, and when I say Afro-Asiatic, I'll be even more specific, to eradicate the Ethiopian, Egyptian, and Phoenician influences on ancient Greek culture. Ancient Greek was in the Dark Ages. And suddenly they got language and all this, and they got religion, and they got it from other peoples. They got it from Egypt and Ethiopia, ancient Ethiopia, and they got stuff from the Phoenicians. So the Egyptians and ancient Ethiopians, these are essentially the descendants of Africans and enslaved Africans that the world has enslaved. And the Phoenicians are ancient Canaanite peoples. So the ancestors of Jewish people. So these white European men found this out and said, we have to eradicate, because how else can we explain what we're doing to the descendants of these two peoples, of black people and Jewish people? We're eradicating the Phoenician and the Egyptian, Ethiopian influence on ancient Greek culture. And so to help bring that all back to this play I was doing this summer, I can go off, but I always know where I'm at. To bring it off to this play was about an ancient figure who has been lost to us that there were epic poems about. His poem appears after the Iliad in a fragmented, lost epic poem called Aethiopis. After Hector gets killed, Hector, who is a mortal man, so of course he's not going to defeat Achilles, who's a demigod. Of course he's going to get his butt kicked. Troy calls in they call in two more people to help fight for them. One is an Amazon queen named Penthesilea, something like that. They call her in. She's fierce. She was a little demigod, I believe. Achilles kills her. Then their last hope, which is why the poem is called Aethiopis. They call in the king of ancient Ethiopia named Memnon, not Agamemnon. Memnon was his name. He is on vases. There's a vase of him in the Met on the first floor right now, flanked by two Ethiopian warriors. Hair looks like this, textured just like this. Their nose is a little bigger. They knew what they were drawing. Yeah. Right? So Memnon was the king of ancient Ethiopia, and he was also a demigod. But his goddess mother was a little more, in my opinion, she was better than Achilles' goddess mother. Achilles' mother was just a nymph goddess, water nymph goddess. Memnon's mother is the goddess of the dawn, Eos or Eos. She brings the dawn. This is Memnon's mother, right? Memnon is also half Trojan. His father is King Priam's brother, right? So this is why they call him. They call him, and he brings Ethiopian, Indian warriors. This is what the ancient texts say, right? He brings all these people to come and fight Achilles and to fight for Troy. Now, Memnon, even though he dies, he is the only person in the ancient myth that was able to wound Achilles somewhere that was not his Achilles heel. So that tells you how strong he was. They also fought for days on end. They fought for days. And the goddess mothers, and there's reliefs of this, there's paintings of this. The goddess moms were pleading to Zeus, let my son win, let my son win. Zeus said, I can't pick. I love them both. In fact, Zeus made them bigger. They made them giants and let them fight over the land so that everybody could watch. And then finally, Zeus decides, okay, I'm going to let Achilles win this battle and get this glory. But Memnon will be able to come to Olympus and be immortal. But Achilles will go to Hades. This was a brother, essentially. He's the king of ancient Ethiopia. So this play that has been lost. Even the plays have been lost. But this modern day writer, actually the same writer who I worked with Steel Hammer, and who also wrote the Malcolm X play. He wrote this play, but he wrote it as if we found a lost ancient Greek play. So it's written in the style, in the meter, with those long speeches. It's written with that muscularity. Someone, black chick, came and saw it. I met afterwards, and it was a guy she had with her. I was talking to them afterwards, and they really dug the play. And she said, I love your episode, that episode you were in of The Godfather of Harlem, this show with Forrest Whitaker. I have an episode on the 3rd season, I believe, that I'm in. A pretty prominent role in this episode. And she said, I love that. And it's a random episode, but like I said, I'm like one of the main characters in that episode. And she said, I loved your episode of that. And she said, I was actually just telling my friend, this guy here, I was telling him about it. And she says, and when I was telling him about you, and he was like, I was like, trying to be like, well, who is this actor? She says, and when I looked your name up, I saw you were doing this play. And that's why we came tonight. I said, small mission accomplished. I didn't have any social media. Now, obviously, this is one person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, and we were this was outdoor theater, and we had like over 1,000 people every single night. It was also free to the public too. But just because something's free don't mean people will show. In fact, when something's free, a lot of times people actually forget about it and they don't show up.
Yeah.
But we were packed for a month. And it really was a beautiful thing. And it's stuff like that goes, now I'm probably going to be a poor artist because it is worth it. It is worth it. And there were things that we could do and that I could do in that play that I probably couldn't do if it was a movie, Or maybe I could, I don't know. But there's also just something you can see it. You can see it and feel it. You can see it's live. And I think people respond to something when they know that it's uninterrupted. When it's uninterrupted.
Yeah.
You respond to it. When my uncle, my musician uncle, in a lot of his live sets, he does not stop playing. Some musicians stop. Maybe they talk, say, here's the next song. He does not stop. He plays the set the whole way through. He's famously always did this. The music never stops. He'll lead one thing into the next. You know what I mean? To create this, maybe a trance or I don't know, something, and maybe I take that in as a kid. I took that in. Anyway.
I would love to close. You've mentioned a few times about how it's possible you'll die a starving or poor artist, but a fulfilled one, a happy one.
Yeah.
I like to close with this question with artists, and I want to put this to you about how you think about the word success as it applies to your craft, your art, your life. What does that word mean to you? And what does it look like as you look into your future?
I'm happy you asked that because my therapist a couple of months ago asked me that. As I sometimes talk about my qualms, and issues sometimes with being an artist. Not that I'll ever stop, but just that it really tests you.
Yeah.
So you got to be strong, and you do have to love it. And also, even when you don't love it, you have to understand that this is your purpose for it. So to me, well, there's little success and there's big overall success. As far as little successes, I am incredibly successful.
Great way to put it.
I am incredibly successful. And there are the times where I feel like I'm not. I have to think about that. I have to remember I am incredibly successful. The big overall success, to me, success is being able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. That's when I know I've really been big success. When I say after I finish writing, this pilot that I'm trying to write, or after I finish working out this play idea, or after I finish whatever, that the minute I finish it, that I'm so successful that it'll get done in a short amount of time. I don't have to spend years trying to convince people. I don't have to spend years trying to find money for it. That I'll have most of the starter money, or I'll have that kind of clout where somebody's like, we'll give you money to do whatever you want to do. I have that a little bit, the thing about the poems, the black poetry that I was telling you about, that really came about because I had done a previous show with that company, and they said, we love working with you. They said, what else you got? What else you want to do? And I said, well, I've been thinking about this thing. And suddenly, the woman said, all right. And slowly we began that process, over next few years working on it. And then, and now here we are. So on a small level, it's happened a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think also not even artistically doing what I want to do when I want to do it. Personally, doing what I do when I want to do it. There are times where I just want to take a month off, 2 months off from life, but I can't afford to do it. I have a survival job, that I do, And I'm grateful that I have it and that it gives me the freedom to come and go as I want. And then when I'm there, I make very good money doing it, you know, and the freedom to, like I said, come and go from it. But that also means that when I'm not artistically working, I can't just take 2 months off of my life and do nothing, or just lay around the house and drink tea and practice the saxophone and or read these books. You know what I mean? That I can't just do that, you know? So that's my ultimate thing is artistically is when I know I've been successful. And that's not big. I don't think that's very big to say that I get to the place where I want to do what I want to do, what I want to do it.
Yeah.
That I just want to, you know, go for a week to the Netherlands with my girlfriend and just say, let's just go. I went to the spot when I was on tour, and actually, you know, we weren't together then, but I would love to take you there. I would love to go there and kind of experience that with you, you know, or man, there was this incredible record shop I went to, you know, 10 years ago when I was in Sydney, and I want to go back to that spot, and I just want to go for a day. Maybe that's a little extravagant, but I mean, you know, but hey, you know, that would be, and then project wise, you know, but for right now, and maybe I'll expand it because now I've reached that goal. Years ago, I said, I want to just get to the place where at any point in time, if I want to go have a pastry and a cup of coffee at a really nice cafe, I have the money to do that. And sometimes in my early 20s, if I was between gigs, I wasn't going to waste $10 getting a nice pastry and a coffee anytime I wanted to. I had to be a little different. But now I told myself, I just want to get to a place where I have the kind of money where whenever I want to, even if I don't do it, I can just go. And I don't even think about, I don't have to ask how much it costs. You know what I mean? I think everybody, for those that didn't grow up with a lot of money, maybe you grew up asking how much something is.
Yeah.
And then when you stop asking for certain things, how much something is, that's when you go, okay, that's cool. You go, man, that's $20 for that? I didn't know that's how much it was, but all right, whatever. You know, that's kind of cool, you know? So maybe I need to move the needle a little bit because now I can do the coffee and the pastry anytime I want. So now I just got to move the needle and invite some of that other energy into me. Yeah.
Eric, this is fascinating.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.